Big smile.
Well, welcome everybody to the Phil and Ben podcast. This is episode number 4. I hope everybody out in the world there that's tuning in is feeling very good today. Morning or afternoon, Ben. How's it going, mate?
Well enough, dude. Thank you very much. Usual shenanigans of a very intense morning. Happy to be here with you right now talking. This is like my relaxed time. So I've got my cup of tea. We've got a broad outline of what we're going to be covering today. And I suppose we do owe the few listeners that we have at this current point in time only into episode 4.
Mate, thousands of them.
Oh, mate, they're everywhere, spanning all four corners of the globe. A little apology because we missed a week or two, but we've got a lot going on and there was no strict format. And I suppose on that note, we have got a little announcement to make at the end, and plenty to get through before that. So yeah, well enough here, and happy to be back.
Okay, well, we're in the sort of the final throes of the rainy season up here. I think it's a bit different with you. And for the podcast viewers or listeners, we're about 1,500 kilometers apart. Ben's in the south of Thailand, I'm in the north. But yeah, so we've had quite a bit of rain in the last couple of weeks. But by the end of October, it's all gone. So, and then we've got our wonderful winter coming, which can mean 5 degrees or 10 degrees in the evening time and 25 in the daytime. So we've got winter to look forward to.
If you haven't been to Thailand, the November, December, January period in the north of Thailand is just, in my opinion, perfect weather. The climate is just so shorts and t-shirts, no humidity, a welcome chill in the evening, where you kind of, sometimes you might want to put on a jumper. Do you know what I mean? But comfortably. Or if you're on a bike, you need to wrap up because of the breeze and the wind. But yeah, Chiang Mai in this time of year is just so epic.
Totally. Okay, shall we get going then? So we've got your media manipulation to start things off, and then I'll come in with my book corner after that. So should we have a bit of a report on this week's media manipulation?
Sure. So if anyone's new, basically this conversation is geared towards good souls, life lovers, and world helpers. That's who we really want to engage with. And the format that we're really partaking in currently is really a 3-part format, where at the first 5 to 10 minutes, we got a little section called media manipulation, where we're looking at the 2 kind of polar extremes of the reporting out there in the world and how we navigate between those. And then we've got the book corner, and I present the media manipulation, but obviously it's an open platform with you, Phil. And then your part is book corner, where you're going to run through a certain part of a book of your choice. And then we kind of go over a table topic before we close each episode. So in this week's media manipulation segment, there's really only one story that's kind of all over the place, and that is to do with the Israel-Palestine conflict. And again, if you've watched the previous episodes, for me, it's about comparing 2 polar extremes out there in the world of media: Natural News and the BBC. Natural News being a credible alternative media source, and the BBC being the organization out there with the biggest global media funding budget annually,
Reach.
So and the difference between the 2 is incredible. And this topic specifically is one that holds great weight in terms of how different the narratives are. And Natural News is founded by a person called Mike Adams. I actually really just listen to his report every week. And Phil, you were asking me about him recently, offline, in terms of his intelligence, his integrity, and I gave you my thoughts. And I just would say to you personally, Phil, but anyone who's listening, that this recent episode, and I think it's just posted today, which was actually his Monday night, right? But obviously we're in Thailand, we're 11 hours ahead, I think it is. Oh, the way that he breaks down the situation going on, his analysis of this conflict, the build up to it, what potentially is really going on behind the scenes and how it all can play out is so, it's first class. It really is. And it is his own analysis, but it's linked to various information points, touch points, news articles, previous political events, reports, quotes that are all tied together in a way that really paints the picture in a way completely different to what you're going to see in the mainstream media like the BBC. And so I would say I can't match that on this podcast through his conversation. I can't match his commentary or analysis. Okay, the best thing I could do is say you should listen to it. 100%.
Can I just say something there, Ben, for the audience as well?
Sure.
I wrote to Ben a couple of days ago, and it wasn't linked to our podcast at all, but I asked Ben what sort of score he gave Mike Adams out of 10 for credibility and integrity. And so, this is Ben's topic, media manipulation, and it's our job as ordinary human beings, when we listen to any media, what kind of credibility can we invest in who's talking to us, and what kind of integrity do we feel they're talking with? Now, somebody could be speaking with full integrity, but have it all wrong. So they didn't deliberately lie. They didn't deliberately get anything wrong, but they just didn't have the full intelligence or information. So I think that's a really important thing for all of us ordinary people, is when we choose any kind of media, ask ourselves, do we find them credible? And do we feel, and we can only feel and sense through our instinct, are they talking with full integrity? And for me, that's that, if I feel integrity and credibility are there, then I invest my time in those sources and like to listen to them. Sorry, I thought that was worth saying.
No. And I mean, just to really close this, because again, Phil, and anyone watching, wherever you are, whenever you are, I can't do this topic justice. It was incredibly deep and complex, and his analysis and breakdown of it all was first class. And the scores that I gave him, incidentally, were 10 out of 10 on both fronts. Yeah, I did mention to you, Phil, and I'll say it to anyone listening, he's an American patriot Texan, right? A prepper. And you have to go through that filter of who he is. And for some people, they might not be able to digest that. They might not be able to stomach who he is, right? Just because of who they are. For me, I've got used to it. I've got a relationship with him. I like it, but it's through that lens and through that filter. And so sometimes when he'll be seeing the world, he's seeing it through his eyes as an American patriot Texan. And you have to take some things with a pinch of salt. But in terms of intelligence and integrity, 10 out of 10. And this topic, which is so sensitive and so important. And I'll tell you that from what the breakdown he gave, it made it clear that WW3 goes beyond the potential of, US, Russia, China kind of triangle, and that this is heating up to be an integral part of the unfolding turbulence and division between us all. And it was, you send your links to start this meeting, Phil, through Messenger, right? So I had to hop on Facebook to get this link, and there at the top of my feed, just before I clicked to get this message, in a matter of seconds, someone posts prayers to Israel, right? Israel flag. And so my eyes divert below and I see the comment, and the next comment below, someone I don't know, posting something pro-Palestine. Right? And then below that, someone else posting something about something, and I don't know what they're saying, but then the thumbnail had a bit of Russell Brand, and in the second comment down on that thread, up below the pro-Palestine, which is a thread about supporting Israel. Already there's a massive conflict and it's all happening. This other person's sharing something, and the last bit of his comment in brackets was, ignore Russell Brand, he's a dick. And I'm like, oh my God, in this just in this glancing whimsical glance is kind of a microcosm of the whole world right now.
So just hold you there, Ben, for the viewers. Bear in mind what Ben's just said, and recall this division and these some people supporting Palestine, supporting Israel. Bear that in mind when I come to read my portion of this book for today. That's all I'll say. Just remember that. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, no, that is it. It's such a hot topic, and as the humanity is so easily manipulated, it's become so clear. And the people that would probably tune into us are the people that probably are able to begin to see, is it the wood through the forest? Is that the saying?
See the wood for the trees, or the trees for the wood. See the wood for the trees.
Yeah, there you go. So if you are listening to this, you're probably going to be one of those people that are at least able to step back and kind of separate from the fed narrative. Because when people are posting these things, not to say that I'm not sympathetic with the people that have suffered at the hands of these atrocities. Of course I am. It's going a level or 2 or 3 or 4 above that, and recognizing really what's going on behind the scenes here, because those root issues are where we can begin to unfold and really find solutions to this craziness in the world. So that's the end of my section, really.
5 minutes is up now.
Yeah. No, well, that's the end of it, mate. And
is that it? Yeah, that's your analysis for today.
Yeah. I would encourage everyone to go and listen to that report.
But sorry, so hang on, sorry. So what the BBC been saying in contrast to Mike Adams then?
It really is, at the moment, it's just, from what I've seen, it's storytelling reports of, what's happened on the as shown in the news. It's not an analysis with any great depth behind it. It's just the horror lines. This many people die as the Palestinians drop down and attack, and the festival, 260 festival goers dead in horror shooting. So it really, all it is, it's like and Mike Adams gets into this. It's the attention grabbing, horrifying, terrifying titles and stories to pull us in emotionally, and use that, as media does, as an excuse to then position us ready for the next move that is coming. And yeah, you can look out for that in the report.
So Mike Adams is providing a sort of more of an analysis based on reason and logic and intelligence, whereas the BBC is playing the emotional card. Is that a good summary?
Not just the emotional card. I mean, I think there's it's called media manipulation for a reason, Phil. It's more than the emotional card. It's the stories that they tell are so narrow and contrived.
But in the telling of the stories, are they appealing to our emotional side of our life?
Oh, 100%. It's about
that's doing that. So
ramping up the emotions.
Correct me if I'm wrong. That stands in contrast to Mike Adams, who is not appealing to our emotional side of things. He's trying to appeal to our understanding, our logical, our reasonable, our intelligence, our intellectual understanding and side of things. Is that right?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and to provide a much clearer, more in-depth picture that is much wider. So yeah, I definitely recommend listening to that. His analysis is first class.
So for me, that is the guts of media manipulation. Manipulation to me is changing minds or changing something to suit the person that's doing the changing, and hasn't really got much to do with the reality or the truthful situation. Because if it was just truth, you would report on it instead of trying to manipulate or change it. So for me, the media manipulation can happen and happens only through appealing to our emotional mind, which is usually to generate fear, which was the same with the big pandemic and all of these things that go on. The way that, and this is why I can't stomach mainstream media anymore, is because they're constantly generating fearful or anxiety-driven reactions by tuning into and tapping into and triggering the emotional component of our mind. And that to me is media manipulation. And if my mind is now as fear is generated in it, that shuts down the intellectual, intuitive, reasonable, logical side of my mind. That's now closed because my fear has taken over, is filled the room in my mind. And now I can't think clearly, and now I will do whatever I need to do to try and get rid of that fear. And that's when we look to external authorities to fix everything for us. And this lies at the heart of our world's troubles.
Yeah, and to close this, that word fear is a nice loop on this, because it was framed by Mike that this is essentially the 9/11 of the Middle East. And I'll leave it there, because you can go and look at, you listen to the report yourself to see how and why he's come to that conclusion. It's insightful, and it's well sort of presented.
How do we get there? Just go straight to naturalnews.com. And is this on his Brighty,
yeah.
Brighty on video channel?
Go to naturalnews.com. It's at the top of the page.
A video report or a written report?
So the format of his report is video, but it's not really a video. It's just sort of a thumbnail in video format. But then you can also click it as audio form, so that you just get which means that you have lower bandwidth. You don't have to absolutely kill your bandwidth.
I haven't followed any of the actual news of what's been going on. I did manage to listen to one Israeli citizen speaking from Israel for about 10 minutes, and she must have been about 40 or so, because she said that she had done her time in the Israeli Defense Forces when, about 20 years ago or 15 years ago or something. So she must have been about 40, and she was giving her view of things. And all I can say is that she couldn't understand why the borders weren't being protected, as they always are. But look, I mean, at the end of the day, we could give our opinions, but I think you're right. I think people would do well to go and read the Natural News and see what he's saying. I'll do the same myself. But for me,
it's not an article. It's a podcast, and it's about an hour and a half. It's about just over an hour long, and it is well worth a listen. In fact, Phil, I'd love to hear what you think. Once you listen to it, let me know.
I'll try and fit it in. I'm so busy on my venture, and I've got a backlog of things that look interesting to listen to. But for me, Ben, I view this incident without having read all the details, because I've noted a pattern over the years, and the story is always the same. It's just that the names and the word, the names of the people involved or the countries involved,
protagonists, or
but the same story keeps on playing out. So I'll put this in the same category as the pandemic and 9/11 and various other things.
So yeah, it's a great example of media manipulation, guys. Check it out, and that's it for this episode. We're not going to hang about on that, because I know that you've got a exciting book corner.
And this week, my book corner is coming from this book here. Can you read that properly, Ben?
Ayurveda Mind, The Healing of Consciousness by Dr. David. I can't read the bottom the name.
And the Mind, The Healing.
Ayurveda and the Mind. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. It's in red. You can't see it properly. So Ayurveda and the Mind, The Healing of Consciousness, and it's by Dr. David Frawley. And I have about 6 or 7 of Frawley's books, because he is, in my mind, the best Western or English-speaking Western. He's an American, but he's the best Western exponent of Ayurveda. And very briefly, for viewers, if you just sort of heard of Ayurveda, don't know about it, It's about 5, 6, 7,000 years old, comes from India, and it's the complete system for healthcare, for preventing illness and disease. and
Sorry, I'm laughing because I'm just thinking of your Ayurvedic treatment. You're telling me your eye, but it was, because it was, it was quite a challenging treatment for you, right? When you were telling me that story.
Oh yeah, the torture. Yeah. Well, the beauty of Ayurveda is that if you learn Ayurveda and learn its message, you will prevent most illnesses and diseases happening, because you will live a lifestyle and eat a diet that supports life instead of attacking it. And we are in such a mess in our world because we eat the wrong foods. We take medicines that manage symptoms instead of curing us. We can't cure ourselves until we take preventative action. If we keep poisoning ourselves, it doesn't matter what pills we take, we're going to keep poisoning ourselves. So Ayurveda is the best single body of knowledge for the layman or the laywoman to learn the basics of taking care of your own health. But this is actually sorry.
One more time, can you tell us the author then? Sorry, I just missed his name.
Dr. David Frawley, Frawley. I'll make reference to it in the notes underneath the video.
Okay, thanks, man.
But he's fantastic. But this book is much more about learning and understanding the mind. And I bought this book, I think I bought it about 15, 20 years ago. And it was complete revelation to me. I'd been doing lots of investigations into the mind for donkey's years, most of it on the hammocks near where you are in Koh Samui and Koh Phangan. I did thousands of hours of hammock time. Why are human beings so brutal and so beautiful? How can we be both? And it comes to this, that in my book. And then when I read this, it was just mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. Now, I've got a question for you, Ben, before I read it out. And the question goes to all of you out there listening to us as well. So as you listen, think about your answer to my question. And Ben will give us his answer at the end when I finish talking, but you might think what yours is. The question is, and it's going to take me about 5 minutes to read it. It's just 2 pages. And Ben, what's the core message or understanding that you get from the bit that I'm going to read out to you? Okay, you can respond in any way you want, but I want to know what your core understanding is of this portion of text. Okay. And to remind everybody, when Ben was talking earlier on about about his media stuff, and I asked you to think about that when we got here. So here we go. And this is from the chapter called The Nature of the Mind. And it's a subtitle within the chapter called Getting to Know the Mind. Can one imagine being put into the driver's seat of an automobile with the engine running and not knowing how to drive, not knowing how to use the brakes, the steering wheel, or the clutch? Naturally, we would get into an accident and, should we survive, would end up permanently afraid of driving. We are in not a too different situation with our minds. Our awareness is placed in the mind when we are born, but we are not taught how to use the mind, its sensitivities and emotions. We are not taught the meaning of its states of waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. We are not shown the comparative functions of reason, feeling, will, and sensory perception. We are left in the dark because our parents and society do not understand the mind and how it works. The mind is the main vehicle we use for all that we do, yet few, if any of us, know how to use and care for it properly. We all suffer from ignorance of the nature of the mind. All problems we encounter in life are based ultimately upon not knowing the mind and its functions. From this primary problem, various secondary problems arise, like how to fulfill our desires or how to avoid what we fear, which, however important these may appear, are merely the natural consequence of this basic ignorance about the mind. For example, if we do not know how to drive a car properly, the issue of where to go with it is not important. However, we take these derivative problems as primary or blame others for them, turning them into social, moral, or political issues, not realizing that they are just one problem, not understanding the mind. From a wrong understanding of the mind, we develop wrong ideas about the world and run into difficulty in our social interactions. To use another analogy, if we do not understand how fire works, we may burn ourselves. This does not mean we are a bad person or that fire is bad, but only that we do not understand fire and its properties. The mind has its qualities and, like fire, can be used for both good and bad. It can provide great happiness or wreak tremendous havoc in the world, as history has shown again and again. All psychological problems are nothing more than a wrong use of the mind, which arises from ignorance of how the mind works. The solution to all our mental problems is to learn to use the mind properly. This is true whatever our psychological problems may be. More important than any examination of our personal or social problems is educating ourselves about the nature of the mind. All the problems that appear so immediate and important, like whether we will be loved or if our friends and family can be happy, are not the real issue and cannot be solved directly. The real issue is how to use the most important and central instrument in our lives, the mind itself. Learning the right use of the mind not only solves our psychological problems, but directs us to our higher potential of self-realization. It leads to the spiritual life, which is our real occupation as conscious beings. Then we can transcend the mind, which is inherently limited, to pure awareness, unbounded by time, space, or causation. For all things in life, we must start with understanding the mind.
Okay. Thank you, Phil.
Hope you like that.
So I did like that, and I'd be keen to look more into the Ayurveda subject. I know that you're quite a long-standing proponent of it. So yeah, my summary of that, to answer your question, and obviously viewers, I'm sure you're going to have your own. In a nutshell, would be this: that the mind is either your greatest ally or enemy. And I think that that is the nutshell of it. It can be our greatest ally or our worst enemy. And basically, yeah, how we use the mind that's what that's about. Would you say that's a fair analysis of what you've just read?
I mean, yeah, well, it is, because it's your analysis. It's your perspective and your reception of it. Did it resonate you as one of the people he's talking about, because he's talking about all of us? Does it resonate with you that there is stuff about your mind that you don't know and you don't understand, and that sometimes instead of you using your own mind, it will use you? Or have you gone sufficiently through your life's journey into awareness to counteract that?
No, dude. I'm at the mid to lower level. You know what I mean? Of understanding my own mind and being able to use it in a way that really, yeah, I'm not an sort of a self-realized individual. I'm on that journey. I'm becoming as conscious as I can. I practice as much meditation. I'm trying to be open and aware and critical of self in a productive way. But I think that it does boil down to what I said, which is an analysis of what you just read. I think that the mind can be either our greatest ally or our worst enemy. How we use the mind, how based on our understanding of it, literally unfolds either or both at times.
But if you did sufficient work on understanding the mind, and now you've got a very good grasp of how it works, could it then still be your enemy?
I think that's part of the journey, right? I think that can it still be your enemy? It depends how deeply how deeply wounded or psychologically affected you are in the context of your childhood or the environment we're in. But yeah, of course, understanding our mind and learning how to use it in a great way can obviously help it become our ally. For example, visualization, acceptance, honesty and reflection about ourselves, through our own minds, our internal language, using conscious language, the power of conscious language internally and externally. These are just some of the tools that I feel I've, stumbled upon on my own efforts to grow, that are central to the mind and allow us to use the mind in a way that makes it an ally to our life's path.
Okay, so here's a question for you and everybody. Is your mind a separate entity living on its own?
Yeah, I mean, it's a deep question. I think part of our consciousness maybe is, the part connected to source. If you feel that you're connected to something greater, then yeah, you could say that. And also sometimes you've got this thing called the monkey mind, the part that talks uncontrollably, or the ego that comes up with random stuff. And then you've got the shadow mind and the different facets of the mind that have been shared by various psychologists. So it is kind of separate to itself, but it's how we tame those or control those or rein those elements of our own mind, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, as you just said, it's a huge topic, but it's the number one topic. It's the number one thing we should try and learn. How it works. We're not taught how it works in schools, as Frawley said, because the parents and society don't know how it works. So if you're the parent and you're the educator and you don't know how the mind works, you can't teach anybody else how it works. Now, I literally, the path that my life took, I spent the entire 90s teaching English language students, adults in Bangkok. And I was having the time of my life. I loved the job. But what happened was that the job allowed me, I never earned much money, but I earned a lot of time. I would take 3 or 4 holidays a year down to the islands. And I spent most of the time on the islands in my hammock, in the beautiful nature. And I wanted to explore the mind. I wanted to understand this thing that created so much beauty and brutality. The same thing, creating brutality and beauty. Now, so therefore, the more that you can understand your mind, the less troubles and the less hassles and the less stress that you're going to experience in your life. That is a fact, because the mind is your world. The mind, and now I'm not presenting a fact of life. I'm presenting my understanding of the reality of life. So it's for people to decide if they think they agree with me or not, or to say, well, that makes sense. I need to go away and investigate it. But I'm telling you now, according to my understanding and my thousands of hours of literal reflection on my own and reading other books and reading spiritual books, and this is much more about the mind rather than Ayurveda per se. The mind is not a separate entity. The mind is a relational entity. And it only exists in relation to everything around you and within you. Your mind is your personal connection to the whole universe. Now, there are people who will argue differently, and then they'll argue about soul and soul consciousness and so on, and that's fine. But for me, my body and my soul and my experiences and my understanding and my consciousness and my everything all pass through this central computer, which we call the mind. So the mind is the center of my universe. but you have a mind as well. And therefore, the mind is the center of Ben's universe. So the mind, the human mind, is the middle of the universe, and therefore the human mind is the universe. And we are connected as if by an umbilical cord. Our mind and the world out there is umbilically tied. So in the news of the week with Israel and people saying, oh, come on, Palestine, I stand with you, or I stand with you, Israelis, and so on. This is the consequence of not knowing your own mind. People have had their minds divided by divided minds. So parents and teachers don't teach us how the mind works because they don't know. Therefore, everybody in the world talks about the government manipulating our minds. Well, the government, the people in the government, or the people doing the manipulating of other minds, are doing so from their own manipulated mind that they don't understand. Because if I understand my mind, and I do, I'm never going to try and divide people. I'm always going to try and unite people, because that is the reality. I am connected with everything and everybody out there through my mind. So if I come along and I hate you, or I am envious of you, or I'm bitter towards you, or I'm resentful for you, that's me sending an energy towards your way, Ben. But you might not even know about it, and you might not receive that energy, but that energy is consuming my mind and my heart. So me, the hater, me, the resentful person, me, the angry person, me, the envious person, it's me with the hurt and the harm inside me. And I am hurting myself by directing negative energy towards you, because I have that negative energy. And I've probably got that because somebody else hurt me when I was young or whatever. So it's not that I'm a bad person. It's not that you're a bad person. It's because I don't understand the mind and how it is interconnected with the whole universe out there.
Okay, appreciate that, Phil. I mean, I'm kind of broadly aware of that. I see and feel it the same way, and I think that's a nice segment into our transition into the table topic, right? Which for this week, I'll call it mindfulness in a mad world. And I think that it unites both the media manipulation section and the book corner. And for me, given what you just said, I couldn't really agree more with what you said, especially the central component of the mind being everything. You know, I saw this this picture on Facebook of is like, this is you. This is everything. This is you. And it essentially was a picture of the brain that had been removed from a body with the nervous system. And that is literally, this is everything that you are that interprets the world. It's just this weird globular brain thing and this nervous system, and that alone is what we interpret as reality. But it all kind of boils down into this untouchable thing called the mind. And so mindfulness in a mad world, I mean, how important is that? Because the first part of mindfulness in a mad world is the meta subject of understanding the place and importance of the mind in this world, because the mind is the filter. So we've got to be mindful of our minds, right? And that the importance of them.
And you have to use your mind to understand your mind.
Right. And we have to be aware of the impact of information that we are fed, that we see, upon our minds, in terms of the emotions that we feel, in terms of the way that we react, in terms of the narratives that we're fed, and the reasons that we provide for the actions and the way that we want to look at the world. A lot of people, more and more, are, I feel, becoming disheartened in this world and confused at what's going on. For me, it's as clear as day, and I think it's the same for you, Phil. You know, humanity is we're a slave race, and we are at the whims of those in control and those in power. And I mean, there's something that I read a while back about the term government and the etymology of that word. Ment being an evolution, MENT, of a Latin word for mind, MENTE, mente. So the mind was termed mente in Latin, and then govern, to control, mente, control of the mind. And really, broadly speaking, that is the goal, the role of the government. You could say they're there to fix roads and manage stuff like that, but ultimately it's cut down to controlling of the mind. And even if you look back all the way to the hieroglyphics and the drawings in ancient Egyptian tombs or whatnot, you'll see these images of these huge creatures kind of holding cone-like shapes that are similar to the what part of the brain is it? The amygdala, I think it's called, which is about the size of an acorn. Yeah, amygdala, pointing cone-shaped objects directly at the brains or the heads of the people, these Egyptian people. There are pictures of it, and there's a reason they're pointing it at that part of the body. It's control of the mind. And so our minds are, and we've got to understand these powers in control have researched the mind in ways that we, the average person, cannot do. Years and decades and centuries of research in human behavior and psychology that allows them to understand how humans will react and how to control the mind. And so mindfulness in today, moving into the future months and years, is more important than ever, man.
Well, the interesting thing is that if those people have researched to understand the mind, so
look at that, my child's coming in, crawling in for a window. I'm just on a call at the moment, mate. Yeah.
So yeah, if
go out. Go on then. Go on then, Phil.
Yeah. So if these are the people who have researched the mind and are choosing to control us,
yeah,
I've researched the mind equally, and I'm not trying to control people. So what's the difference? Why are they trying? If they know everything about the mind, why are they using their mind to control us and cause harm, hurt, maiming, and problems? So the question is, there must be something else about the mind.
I would say that, like I heard a quote once: any form of attack is a cry for help. And at a deep level, there's something in these people that is there's a vacancy, there's an emptiness, there's something that is unsatisfied. I would, one of the analysis and that was made, I think, in a Mike Adams interview about the cause behind psychopaths in prison. People would say that it was down to trauma during childhood. And there was this psychologist that had interviewed various extreme psychopaths in prison. And the commonality was not that they'd had suffered trauma during their childhood, but that they were overtly mollycoddled and loved by their mother to a extreme degree, where this boy was their mother's angel. They were everything to her. They were perfect. They couldn't do anything wrong. Anything they did was fine. They couldn't do anything. And, completely protected from the world. And then when this person who felt like a god, felt like, growing up with the mother, that the child boy's sort of divine goddess of creation, their source of life, looking up to their mother, experiencing this feeling of, oh my God, I am the king, I am everything, I am the center of the world, and then going out into the world and realizing that you know, people don't really give a shit about you, you know, and, you know, you're in a job, we don't care what you feel and what you think, you know, you're nobody. And that polarity experience then building this internal disgust and discrepancy of like, well, what have I been told and what have I been programmed with of how the world actually sees me? And that this was a source of, you know, serious, well, ill health in the mind. So it's not a simple thing. And there are clear examples where people have experienced drastic and really horrific trauma during childhood that has shaped this emptiness, whereby you've got these psychopathic people with power out in the world that are abusing the everyday person. I can't tell you the source of these people, but it's out there.
But now this is the thing. They can only abuse us if we don't know who we are, and if we don't know what our mind is and who, you know, how our mind works. Because this psychopathic tendency, and I've read that 1 in 10 people are psychopaths, which is a lot of people. And when they get into power, they do tremendous damage. But the thing is that what we do is we pay undue attention on these psychopaths and the powerful people that are doing causing problems in government and so on. And it comes from the misunderstanding that we have about our mind and about the world. Before, I said to you that the mind was inextricably connected and linked to everything out there. And then you just started talking about things and you mentioned the word information. Now, information is the connector. Here's my mind, and there's something outside in the world. And when that something outside in the world comes onto my screen of a consciousness, it's information that's flowing. This is an informational input from the external world onto like the screen of my consciousness, of my mind, if you like. Now, the trouble is, because we don't understand the mind, and we don't understand that that information is now the glue between the two, and that we're now connected, we look outside of ourselves and we see the world out there as existing out there, and it's not in us. But the world out there is only understood inside us. Does that make sense? The whole universe that we see and we hear about and we watch and notice and observe and listen to, our perception and perspective of it is formed inside our skin. So we basically live in a world of information and information flow. Human beings are in effect, you know, like you get your export-import agents and you get your travel agents and so on. We're information agents. And so the whole world that we understand is the connection between out there and our mind. So our mind has been formed and shaped when we were young as kids from parents and teachers and the whole adult world and society. And when we're 18, we enter adulthood with this formed mind. And it's been formed by the adult world who don't understand that mind. So now we're the latest generation of ignorant people about our own mind. So this is the heart of the problem. So we look out there and we see the Palestinians and we see the Israelis, and we will favor one or the other depending on what's already in our mind. If we've been brought up to believe that the Israelis are all nasty people, or if we've been brought up to believe that the Israelis have been hurt and brutalized upon, we have a different view. But the way I see it is they're all human beings, and hurt people, and loving people love people. So the mindfulness that we began talking about, the mindfulness is a journey of inner reflection, self-reflection, observation of out there and observation of inside our mind. That is mindfulness and meditation. It's taking time, creating time and space for yourself to say, what is my mind? How does it work? And how is my mind connected with the world beyond my skin? And there's two worlds beyond the skin. There's the one around me now where I live, work and play. And there's the one I consume in media. So there's two worlds out there. There's the media-driven world, where information is mediated to us from another person.
The narrative. The narrative.
Yes, the narrative, but when you watch the media or listen to the media, information is being mediated to you. So that's the verb of media, is to mediate. So the information is being mediated to you third hand, and somebody's telling you Israel good, Palestine bad, Palestine good, Israel bad. Whoa, I'm confused. So don't listen to them. We have to learn to mediate our own information, and we learn that by meditating upon it. Here's another word: medicate. If you get medicine from a doctor, the doctor is medicating you, the medicine. If you consume media, other people, journalists or whoever, government, politicians, are mediating information into you. So medicine and media come from out there, but meditation comes from within. And the purpose of meditation is not to stop thinking, it's to see our thinking. It's to see our thinking and say, whoa, I didn't think that just now. That monkey mind you mentioned, that thought just popped into my head. You know, when you're cleaning your teeth and like your skiing holiday flashes into your head. I didn't think about it, but that thought arrived in my head. Or that bastard round the corner, they're still making a noise, you know. So I think mindfulness is just to close that up. Mindfulness is the journey that we can take of self-inquiry and self-observation and meditation to concentrate on the information coming into our mind and the information going from our mind back out into the world. And to finish that with a little, a real useful task for everybody to do, all the viewers. This is something a mantra of mine, and it's for you obviously as well, Ben. Take time out and observe others and learn about yourself, and observe yourself and learn about others. And others and ourself is the mind. You are your mind. And there's different portions of the mind, so they're all part of who you are. So yeah, I mean, you know, I think when we understand that mindfulness and meditation is linking our mind to the external world and realizing that the two are connected, that's when we start to say, hang on, if I'm hating other people, then that hatred is inside me.
Yeah, and I think that it's important as we close this to touch upon some practical points around this mindfulness in a mad world, because it's everything. The world is mad, and again, that's from the mind, right? There is this reality, and what's unfolding is absolute craziness, right? And the best tool of protection that we have, our greatest ally or our greatest enemy, is the mind itself. For me, what that means, and I'm just at the most practical level, mindfulness in a mad world is being mindful of the information we're consuming, the sources of it. So even when I talked about Mike Adams earlier, I'm aware when I'm listening that he is this Texan American patriot, and there are parts that I might not, you know, there's less than 1% that he'll kind of go into, and I'm like, yeah, a little, not really me, not really my vibe, what you're saying now, but I understand because who you are. So I'm mindful of the context of what I'm listening to. I would say that there's so much misinformation, disinformation, fake news, twisted realities and contortions of what's going on. Mindfulness is just being really kind of careful about where we're at the sources of information, and B, how it makes us feel and react. Because if in any way there is a hate towards someone, another average human, the people, then ultimately that is not going to take us anywhere, because it is as simple as this: united we stand, divided we fall. Easy to control humanity. And you know, we're being so divided, we're being pretty much slaughtered. And we just got to be mindful of the dangers at hand and the narratives being fed us. I think for me, that is what mindfulness is about right now.
Well, we're only able to be divided because we don't know the mind, which comes back to what David Frawley is saying in there. And basically the whole book, to remind you that of the title, Ayurveda and the Mind, the Healing of Consciousness. So the whole purpose of the book for the reader is to go on a journey to understand the mind, and you use mindfulness and meditation as two practical techniques to learn about your own mind, because no book can tell you, Ben, what the mind is like. Only you can find out for yourself, because you have to do the mindfulness, which is cutting out the extraneous noise and not allowing yourself to be distracted by the noise or your emotional reactions. He's just a Texan with a big hat or whatever. Mindfulness is staying focused and concentrating without judgment of the message and the person that's coming towards you. So mindfulness and meditation are practical activities we can conduct with our mind to learn about the mind inside us. And as I said before, the media come from out there, and the information is mediated to us. And if we're sick, we go to the doctors out there who medicate us. But if we want to learn about our inner world, which nobody could teach us because nobody knew, if we want to learn about our inner world, about our mind, then we have to go within, and we have to do mindfulness and meditation and observe things. And when you become, and you mentioned awareness as well, and awareness it comes from the mindfulness. So there is awareness of what's happening around me, but there's also self-awareness. Now, if you cut your arm, or you've got a headache, you become aware of your body. But ordinarily, you're not aware of your body. But when you get pain or something happens, you become aware of it. Now, how often do you become aware of your mind? Now, if you want to quit the hatred, quit the anger, quit all this negative stuff that gets into you, and stop all these arguments in your relationships at home with the people that you love, if you want to stop all that, because it's all exhausting, then you have to learn the mind. And that is the healing of consciousness. And mindfulness is the best possible, and meditation. That, you know, mindfulness is staying focused. Meditation is more about watching your own mind. So a quick tip for you, Ben, and all the viewers: go out to a place that you like, whether it's a coffee place in a public in the city, or a park, or nature. I love nature personally, but go somewhere where you can sit down, not distracted. Nobody's going to talk to you. Put your phone away. Don't have any noises. And then just sit there and say to yourself, right, for 15 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever, 10 minutes is enough. In fact, 2 minutes is enough, but 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 1 hour, I'm going to sit here and I'm not going to think.
That's hard.
Hang on. I refuse to think. I'm not going to think. Okay. For 10 minutes, I am choosing to not think, and then see what happens. Now, you've just said it's difficult, hard, but the viewers and you need to go out there and do that task, and then watch what happens. So you're sitting down, and now you've told yourself you're not going to think, and that's what people think with meditation. The chances are you'll be lucky to go 15 seconds.
Well, my mantra, my meditation mantras, my breathe in, breathe out mantras are sink into the body. So I'm sinking, and this is what I'm saying in my mind repeatedly, and kind of going into this meditational kind of zone. And as I'm breathing out, it is empty the mind. And the amount of times that breathing out and internal communication of empty the mind actually has work to do to empty a thought that has just jumped in from nowhere. It's kind of, it progressively, at the beginning, it's pretty much every breath. Every time I'm breathing out, there's something in there that just came from nowhere that needs to empty. And I envision this sort of net pulling up through my consciousness, through my physical brain and mind, pulling out this thought, you know. So if that's any help to people out there in terms of how to to do what you're saying, I hope it is a help to someone, that, you know, internally telling ourselves to empty the mind in alongside our breathing is a helpful way to actually empty the mind.
Well, my question to you, a couple of questions then, and doesn't necessarily need answering. Number one, why are you trying? For what purpose are you trying to empty your mind? But the more important question is, if you say to yourself, I'm going to empty my mind, I'm not going to think, and thoughts arrive in your head, but you said you're not going to think, where did the thoughts come from? Are they you, or are they separate to you? Because you said you're not going to think, and then suddenly thoughts and thinking are going on in your mind, and you can see them, but you didn't think them because you said you were going to sit here quietly. Where did they come from?
So I'm not going to answer those questions right now because I've got children running around, and this could go on and on. Well, the subject of the mind. Anyway. Yeah, exactly.
But that's a good question for you to think about, and also for the viewers to consider.
Yeah. And honestly, yeah, you know, even when they do spring out of nowhere, you're like, where did that come from? So it's a good question. And to the viewers, we entered this table topic, you know, mindfulness in a mad world, knowing that we're not even, you can't even scratch the surface. I mean, you can just sort of kind of put a little bit of dust on it. It's such a deep topic. And my core message is literally to be mindful in a mad world. And hopefully this conversation that we've shared has some fundamental points that can help you become more mindful, to be kind of clearer about the dangers at hand of the what's being unfolding in the world, and the role of our mind in protecting us. And on that note, you know, we did say that we've got an announcement to make at the end of this conversation. So do you want to go ahead and announce that, Phil, or shall I?
I wanted it. I was going to say one quick thing to finish, but it's escaped my mind now. It's escaped my mind. I think, yeah, it's gone. So it's gone. Yeah, well, just the announcement really is that well, you make it.
Sure. So I reached out to Phil, and basically, I've really enjoyed these sessions that we had, and I think they've got some distance to go. I think I would love to continue this, but right now, as I mentioned to you, Phil, and to everyone else, I've got something at hand, a project that is really going to demand my immediate time, attention, and focus. And alongside parenting, which is pretty chaotic, as you can see, my hands are absolutely full. I haven't got a spare 30 minutes. And so we're going to be putting this podcast and conversation on ice, on the back burner, on hold, with a view to pick it up sometime in the future. Not sure yet. I know that you've got a lot of work to do with a spiritual revolution, spiritualrevolution.com, and all your books and workshops that you're building. And I've got a lot of work to do with beststart.life, which is essentially helping to teach early years parents the importance and the hows and whys of the 0 to 3 years, which is the time when the foundations of our psychological self are formed. So I've got to focus on that. And in short, we're putting this on hold for indefinitely, but we don't know when we're going to be picking it up.
Yeah. Well,
that's the announcement, guys.
Let's get back to it when we've got the time. I've enjoyed doing them, and you know, yeah, I would love to continue them whenever the time's right. Because I think it's very useful to have a two-way flow where we're not presenting answers to the world, we're presenting our personal understandings to the world and sharing, and that's what I feel we have to do as a humanity. We have to stop hiding our own thoughts and our own understandings. We have to express ourselves, because if I express myself and it's complete nonsense, then I don't know it's nonsense until people hear it and say, Phil, you're talking nonsense. Oh, okay, right, okay. And then in that way, from having expressed myself, and I've now tested the waters, do people tend to agree with me or not? And in that way, we advance our own cause, we evolve, and we learn ourselves. And there's nothing more exciting and empowering than learning about your own mind. I feel that.
Yeah, and I think that we've closed on a topic that is important, you know, for the time being. The mind, the centerpiece of our experience in this reality. And for me, guys, anyone out there, yeah, take care of yourselves, you know, mentally, as much as possible. Be very careful what you allow to go into your mind, and then what thoughts are being shaped. Yeah, because it matters. The mind matters.
And,
all right.
Okay, and I'll finish by telling you that what you feed your body will feed your mind as well, because while the mind and body can be conceptually seen as two separate things, they are, of course, two sides of the same coin, and they belong to each other. So, and in my book that I wrote, in answer to who am I, who are you, the answer is, Ben, that you are 3DH, 5DL, which very briefly is 3 dimensions of health, 5 dimensions of life. So you're not your mind, you're not your body, you're not your soul, you're all of them added together into an amalgamated whole. And yeah, so we'll keep in touch, but let's get back to it as soon as we can. And meanwhile, to all the viewers, I hope you've enjoyed that particular podcast. I'm going to try and resuscitate my own podcast where I was talking to different people each time, because I want to carry on. I mean, I paid money for this good microphone and I want to use it.
Yeah. You should have got a nice blue light on it. Looks very pro.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, it's been a pleasure, Phil.
Nice one, mate.
And yeah, we'll pick it up as and when. Guys out there, stay well, stay safe. All right.
And mindful.
And mindful. Yeah. Okay. Over and out from me.
Time.
Take care.